My name is Saaroni, and I am a Holocaust survivor. On the birth certificate, I was Sarah, but in Poland, Sarah was a pure Jewish name. I even didn't know that I am Sarah. I was called Saba, Sabcia, Sabina, because living among the Poles and having a Jewish name is just looking for trouble. I would have been bullied, picked on, beaten up. I didn't look Jewish. We lived among the Poles. And I, myself, at that time, I didn't feel the anti-Semitism. I heard about anti-Semitism. I heard about students standing in front of our shop with a placard, "Don't buy from the Jew." But I haven't seen it. And that was always somebody else was involved. Until June 1939, I finished state school. And I had to sit for exams, because I don't know how it was there, but I think you had to go to gymnasium, to high school. You had to sit for exam, and if you were accepted, any school should absorb you. I sat for exams like here, Murabintek, it was high school, and at the same time they were teaching you something extra that you can work on. The exams were very tough, lasted whole week. Every day we had a different subject. I passed the subject very easily. And I received a letter, a certificate by post, that I passed all my subjects with good marks. They were not 90% or 70%, just passed or failed. And I am ready and mature to start work in gymnasium. But because of ill health, I wasn't accepted. Now, ill health, how sick could I have been? I am now nearly 96 and I am still in really good health. I haven't got any issues. They even didn't look at me, but because I was Jewish. And that was the first time that I felt the anti-Semitism directly at me. For me, I wasn't especially interested in school. I didn't have any, what I will be doing later. I was very childish. In Poland, 13, it's not like here. I was a real child. I didn't know anything. I just wanted to play outside, climb trees, climb fences. But that hit me very hard. And I couldn't understand that my parents didn't react to it. I suppose they didn't expect much more. They just tried. And that was the end of my education. The war started. When the Germans arrived, after 3 weeks of fighting, the first thing they did, they arrested all men, Jews, non-Jews, the intelligentsia, the people on high position, were the first to be sent to Auschwitz. Auschwitz at that time wasn't for Jews, was for political prisoners, murderers, and now they had the Poles. After a few weeks, the wife received a telegram that her husband died of a heart attack. And if she wants to send the ashes, she had to give them so much money. And it started quite after a few weeks. I remember we were sitting at home. There was a knock on the door. And in came two Germans with a Polish woman. And she came in, she pointed a finger at my father, and he said, that's him, that's the man. They took my father away and told him to take the keys from the business. We had a shop with garments for men and women. After a while he came back, he was completely different, He was white, he didn't know what hit him. They took all the stock that was in the shop and gave him a piece of paper that after the war he can ask for the return. Not long after, we had to leave our flat and go to the Jewish area. Over there were only Jews at that time. The Poles had to leave. It was the open ghetto. It wasn't closed. We could go in, go out, but we had to wear the Magen David on our clothes. I don't remember what was first, because I remember we used to wear the Magen David in yellow sew on the clothes, and that was a time that we had armband, white armband with blue Magen David. We found a place, a room with a kitchen. We moved there, but soon after another family was pushed in. They were in the kitchen. There were 3 people, a mother with 2 siblings that she had. They were already in their 20s. And all 3 had hunchback. For me, I saw hunchbacks before, but all 3, that's the first time that I saw it. We lived there every morning. My father used to get dressed and go out to find some food, to buy some bread. Now, everything was taken away. If you had a photo apparat or anything, you had to give it up. Radio, you are not allowed to have it. My father used to sell out, some for our own clothing, everything for that. He used to buy bread on the market. And he arranged to put our things in among the Poles. We had friendly Poles that we lived like friends. We couldn't take with us anything really, because in one room, what can you put in? So everything a piece here, a few pieces there. He put around. We were living there till in the middle of 1941. One morning, my father went, like every day, he went to look for bread, and immediately he came back. And he was white, and he said, quick, quick, get dressed, we're still in bed. The Germans are outside. We jumped out of bed and started to dress up, to put as many clothes as we could, because you can't take much on your back, and soon after we heard steps on and Germans came in. Out, raus, raus. They put us out. In the street, people were everywhere, crying and crying, Some of them even didn't have time to get dressed. And it was raining. Not big rain, but slow rain. And I remember the rain was mixing up with the tears. We were taken to a block somewhere. I even don't know how it was called. And we sat on our packs. There were thousands around us. And ever so often, they took a group on trucks and they disappeared. Then the trucks came back, took another group. We sat there nearly all day. By the end, I suppose they ran out of trains or whatever. They told us to go back home. So we went back, but we knew that tomorrow they will be back again. So my parents find a place for me where to sleep among the Poles. And they supposed to find for themselves somewhere else, because it was dangerous for the Poles too, not to take a Jew in. I slept over there. In the morning, I dressed up and I ran out and started to run to all the Poles that I remember to see where my parents are. And wherever I went, I couldn't find my parents. So I ran to the ghetto. It was still being evacuated. And I don't know how they didn't stop me. I was wearing my sister's fur coat that was much too large for me. You could see who I was. And I ran to our place where we used to live. But they were not there. No one was there. All that area was already empty. I ran here, ran there. By the end, I managed to find them. In our street lived a man, a Jew, that nobody liked him because he worked with the Germans. He was doing something. But he saved a lot of Jews that night. Even my parents couldn't find a place where to stay the night. He came home and he called them to go to his house because his house won't be touched. And the Germans went out. So they stayed the night there. Now, in the morning, when we went out, there were on the placard, how you call them, that Jews should leave Lublin. If not, they will have to be evacuated. It's overcrowded and that. And my father found a place in Zakrzówek. I don't know if he knew that person, he was his client or whatever. And he rented from him one room. The room was longish, not big. And in that room, there were two beds, one double bed and one single bed. And we lived there in the double bed. My father, my mother, and I slept. In the single bed, my uncle with his little son slept. And my grandmother, at night time, they put a bed out for her. I started to help the farmer. In the morning, I went with them. That was already summer. I went with them to the fields and I worked. The first time I used a sickle, that was cut by hand, and I cut my finger. I still got the sign. And the farmer's wife said, that's a good sign, because if you cut your finger, you will be a good worker. She put some material over it. I didn't even want to show it my parents. And I kept it like that. We were thinking that working in the field, being needed, they will let us stay. It will help us. The farmer didn't buy me anything. I ate with them, that's all. And I worked all through the summer. Staying there. In the fields, I did immense work. And I became friendly with them. Their daughter, Christine, she was my friend, she was my age. And there were two brothers and another man, I don't know who he was, really, if another brother. And we stayed there till one night. That was early, very early in the morning. It was still dark. We heard shots. And over there was no ghetto. People were living wherever they wanted. But they were not allowed to move from one place to another. But in the place where they lived, they could move around. And we had to wear the Magen David. We heard shots. We jumped out of bed and ran outside. And we heard that the Germans are here. So we ran into the fields and through the fields to the forest. And we lie there in the forest, hiding. We were there for a few hours. After midday, it stopped. It was quiet. So slowly we started coming back. On the way in the meadow, we saw a group of men crying, people around something crying. When we came closer, we saw 12 men lying faces to the ground like a clock. And all of them were shot in the neck. Not far from them lay a girl about my age. She was not even dressed. And she lied like that, outstretched. Half of her head was blown off. Pieces of bone and brine and was all around. Her eyes were wide open. You could see how frightened she was. Her mouth was open maybe from her last cry. And we were told that those people came from next village without permission. And that's what will happen to us if we won't obey them. We came in, and then we had an announcement that by 4:00 afternoon we had to be in the train station in the next village. So we packed whatever we can take on us. And instead of walking to the next village, my father decided to go back to Lublin, where I was born. Because over there he knew more people, I don't know. When we came out, the farmer's wife said to my mother, "Why don't you leave Savcha with us?" She meant me. "She will be like our own daughter. And when the war ended, you will be reunited." My mother wanted for me to stay, and I started to cry. And I said, "We should be separated. What will happen in a few weeks? She will tell me I can't be here anymore. What will I do? Whatever will happen to you will happen to me." My mother gave in, and we started walking. We were about over 40 kilometers from Lublin. On the halfway, it was already starting to be a little bit darkish. We came to a village. And I ran first to find a place, to buy some food, to prepare some food, because we didn't eat all day. And I found a farm there that she agreed to cook us soup. She put some potatoes there. And I went to the door, and I saw my father and mother coming slowly. My mother hardly could walk, and he was nearly, pulling her. I wanted to run to help, and I couldn't move my feet. I don't know why. I was like paralyzed. The tears were dripping my face, and I was standing watching them. Then we came inside, and we had the meal. And my father arranged with the farmer to find a place for me to stay and for them. Because all three, we couldn't be together, too many. So the woman took me to another village. And she said, over there, she knew the people, that I am her family something, not very close, but family. And at home, they couldn't afford to feed me. And I can work only for food, if they want. So they agreed. And I stayed with them for 2 weeks. I didn't know where my parents were. The problem was, later on, they had 2 little girls. One was maybe 6, one 4, something like that. And the farmer's wife said to me, teach them the prayers. I didn't know any prayers. How can I teach prayer? I didn't know how they pray. You see, we were not very religious. We were traditional. Our home was kosher, Shabbat was Shabbat, and our holiday was holiday, but that's as far as it went. My father every morning was praying. We went to the shul twice a year or something, only on the high holidays. So I always found something, to take their attention out. Something else, and they forgot that I have to teach them, but I knew I'm lost. But that night, the woman came for me. She came in. I remember that was one horse and a little, how do you call it, got 3 wheels for 2 people. And she said to me, take your things and come. So I asked her. First of all, I was happy that I don't have to think about the price. But then I asked her, where are my parents? And she said, I don't know. So I got worried. I said, what do you mean you don't know? Where are they? So she said, look, Germans came yesterday. And they found there some people in next door. And they shot them. And your parents ran to the forest. And from there, they are going to walk to Lublin. And I have to bring you there to them. So I went with her. And before we reached the village, she told me to get down and wait for me. She will go and see if no Germans are there. So I went down. On the left, there was a forest. I loved the forest. It was alive. In Poland, different than here. But at nighttime now, it looks so strange, so frightening. Whatever it moved, I was thinking people are there. On the right, there was a field, but it was beginning of autumn. All was cut, I don't know what it was growing there, the wheat or whatever, but it was taken away. And I lay down on the ground. I wanted to be absorbed. Whatever I looked, I saw shadows. And I was thinking that you went to bring the Germans to me. How long I was there, I don't know, but it was for me so long. Then I heard her steps. She was coming. She came, come. So I went with her. And she took me to another farmer. And I was waiting outside. And she called him out and talked with him, probably gave him money that my father would. And he took me to the, where the, where they keep they keep all the weeds, and because after cutting, that was stuck there, and told me to go up and spend the night there. So I went up, and I lay there. In the morning, I heard voices. I looked down. There were two women with a little girl. They were talking amongst themselves. I was under the impression that it's safe, because so I started to come down. And the woman saw me, said, "You bloody Jew, I'm going to call the Germans." In the meantime, her husband heard the noise, and he came in and told them probably that he got money from me. So she quietened down, and they took me inside. And I was there, I don't remember how long, few days. I didn't go outside. I was helping at home to clean. If somebody was coming, I used to go and hide there. Then in the morning one day, she told me, "You are going now to Lublin. One of the farmers is going there, and he will give me a lift." So I went. He had a long wagon full of things, I don't know what it was. Before we reached Lublin, he told me to get down and to go by foot up to here. He doesn't want to risk. And the woman gave me address where my parents supposed to be. So I started walking. And then it's a thing that I remember till now. It started raining, but it was a funny thing. It was raining in front of me, not on me. So I don't know how. I saw the rain, but I wasn't wet. So I was thinking it's a good sign. I started walking. I came to Lublin, and I came to the address that she gave me. It was a long house and had doors, and there were one-room flats, little, I don't know. And I went there under the number that she gave me and knocked at the door. A woman opened the door, and I recognized she used to work for us. She was a cleaner or whatever. She saw me, she pulled me inside and closed the door. And inside, the room was big, was full of our furniture. You could hardly move in between. And behind the cupboard, I saw my mother sitting. Soon after, my father came back. He went outside something. And he told me that they arranged for me to go to Germany to work as a Polish Christian girl. I didn't want it to be separated, and they will try to go back to ghetto. At that time, the ghetto was a closed-in, not the one that I was before. It was next to Majdanek. extermination camp. Close to it, it was a ghetto. It was called Maidan Tatarski. To go back to ghetto, it doesn't mean to walk back. They had to be smuggled in. Because being found outside, they would have been shot. I didn't want it to go. I started to cry. We should keep together, whatever will happen to you. Then my mother started to cry. And she said to me, look, what do you want from our lives? Why do you have to make it more difficult than it is? You know that nothing will happen to us. They don't need all the people. That's what we believe at that time. You are the one in danger. And if they will take you away, I won't live through it. I won't be able to sleep at nights, knowing all the time that you will be taken away. But if we will know that you are safe, it will be so much easier for us. We will be able to look after ourselves better. And we will survive, we will meet again. Now, as much as I didn't want to be separated, on the other hand, I didn't want to be a burden to them. And I felt that they would be so much better off without me. So on the spur of the moment, I said, okay, you want me to go, I will go. But I was so angry with her for forcing me to make the decision. And when we parted, I didn't even say a proper goodbye. And that was the last time I saw them. Now, my father told me, he gave me address. And he told me to go, first of all, where we used to live in the house. Opposite us was living the owner of the house. We were on the left, she was on the right, on the first floor. And to take from her my brother's suit and to take it to that address. And he's supposed to give me a birth certificate and take me to the place where all the Poles are waiting to be transported. Now, he said, in case, if you have to stay the night over, he arranged with somebody else, he gave me another address, that I can spend the night there. And if I will be in trouble, to go to the old ghetto, the open ghetto. Over there, everything was empty. The houses were standing, without frames, probably for heating. They took the doors and the windows. They were like skeletons. But in the middle of it, there was one building. I don't know what it was before, or was it a school or something religious, but it was a beautiful building. They had stairs like that. And over there, his sister is living there. His sister, Antfella, I know that she got divorced from her husband, I don't know, but she had now a person, he was in the medical something, and he was working in that home that was a camp for prisoners of war, Jewish prisoners of war. The one they needed something done or whatever they were. And they could move from ghetto to that place. They had permission. They work in both places, something. So, and I left. So first of all, I went to the place where I should supposed to spend the night. No, first of all, I went to pick up the suit. She gave me the suit, and I went to the address that my father gave me and handed him the suit, and he told me, tomorrow you will meet me here and here. He gave me a place. So I had to spend the night. So I went to the address that my father gave me. And the minute I went in, I felt something. It's something not right, you know. They couldn't look me in the eye. And then the man said, look, I'm sorry, but we can't have you here. Last night they found Jews next door and they shot them. He was scared. So I said, it's all right. I will be okay. So I said, I will go to Aunt Fella. I went there. Everything was empty. The skeletons of the houses stood only. Nobody lived there. I found the house and I went in. And I saw my uncle, my father's brother. He was a doctor. Probably he was working there too. He saw me, he said, oh, what are you doing here? So I told him I need a place for one night. And tomorrow I will be going to Germany. So he said, wait here. Fella will come soon from the ghetto. She will arrange something for you. So I sat down on the steps. I waited. She had a daughter approximately my age. But we were not very close to my father's family. We saw them when it was a wedding or, a funeral, but that's all. We were closer to my mother's family. I knew her as my cousin, but I never had anything to do. And she was walking, she saw me, but she pretended she didn't see me. So I said, in the evening, it was already autumn. It's starting to be darkish. A fella with a man came back. She saw me. What are you doing here? So I told her. So she said, wait here, I will be back soon. And she and the man went in. And after a while, the man came out. He came to me, he was angry. Do I have to look after the whole family? It's not enough that I found work for your father, that I have to look after you too. I looked at him, I said, don't worry, it doesn't matter. If you can't, I will manage. And I turned around and I went out. It was darkish. Tears were running down my face. I looked around where to go. Then I saw one of the prisoners of war. He saw me. He said, what's wrong? Why are you crying? So I told him, I need one night to spend somewhere. So he said, don't worry. And he put his arm around me. And he said, I know a woman, a Polish woman, for money she will let us stay there for the night, and started to touch me all over. I was very naive, but somehow I realized that he wanted, to sleep with me. So I pushed him away and started running. I ran until I came to the middle of the town, to Krakowskie Przedmieście, that's the main street. I stopped and I started walking slowly, looking at the windows. I didn't saw what was there, but I just pretended that I'm looking, until I came to a garden. In Lublin was a beautiful garden. It was called Ogród Saski. But it's not like here garden. First of all, over there, you are not allowed to walk on the green, how you call it? Grass. You are not allowed to walk on the grass. And there were trees, but not bushes that you can get and hide somewhere. I went in and sat on and there were squirrels over there. I used to come very often there with nuts and feeding them. They were eating from your hand. And they were running around me. They wanted food. And I couldn't even feed myself at that time. And I sat there until I heard they were announcing the garden is being closed. I had to get out. There was no way that I can hide. They would see me. So I went out. That was 9 o'clock. They were closing the garden. And we had, till 10 o'clock, we could be in the street. After 10, it wasn't allowed to be. When I picked up the suit of my brother, I looked through the keyhole into our flat. It was empty. Nothing was there. Everything was taken away. So I was thinking, I will go there. And I knocked at the door of the owner. And she opened, she saw me, she put me inside. I told her that I need one night to stay. If she can give me the key from the flat, I will spend the night there. If they will catch me, I will say I had the key. We used to live there. So she said, don't worry, you can spend the night with us. And I spent the night with them. I looked around. You see, her husband was one of the first to be sent to Auschwitz. And her 2 sons were in hiding. They were on the list too. So she could understand how I felt. She had the daughters-in-law with her and some little kids. One of them was cooking something, and the smell, suddenly I remember I didn't eat all day long. I stayed with her the night. In the morning, I went to the place where he should give me the birth certificate. I went there soon after he came. He gave me a piece of paper I put in my pocket and told me to go in. I realized that anybody can go in, but when you're coming out, you have to have a permission. I went in, and first of all, I had to learn who I am. So I went to the toilet. I opened my birth certificate, and I nearly died. I was at that time 16, and I didn't look more than 13. I looked young. I started to develop late. Yes, I looked very young, no more than 13. And according to the birth certificate, I'm supposed to be 22. Now, how on earth can I convince anyone that I'm 22? I learned all the details from and I tore the birth certificate, put it in the toilet, and put the water in, and went to the office because I have to register. So I told her everything that was in the birth certificate, only I changed my year. Instead of 1920, that I was born 1926. And I told her that I was coming to Lublin. I am living somewhere, I already forgot how it was called. And I came to visit my aunt, but I was taken by the Germans from the train and brought here. They used to do it, from the train, the young people, to send to Germany. If somebody had money, he can put somebody else instead. He paid, in the small townships. And that's it. Somehow she believed me. I was very convincing, you see. And she gave me papers and the name. I stayed there a few days. There were only women there, mostly from villages, from the country. There was one girl, but she was Jewish. You could tell straight away because she was dressed too good to be a village girl. She had a nice coat with fur and high shoes up to here. And she was always trying to be close to me. She was thinking that next to me, she will be able to get through. So I tried to avoid her. But one day, we were in a row, and they were giving a bread, one bread for two people, And while I was going to get the bread, she jumps in front of me, took the bread for her and me. So I was stuck with her. She was next to me. I don't remember how many in a row. It was more than 4, maybe 5 or 6 in a row. I was the first on the right, and she was next to me. And we were marching, and we were surrounded. There were no Germans there. Surrounded by Polish police, And they were looking you straight in the eyes. If somebody just blinked or looked away or something, they took him out and started to interrogate. I passed through, they took her out. The last I saw of her, she was kneeling, probably told her to say the prayer, I don't know. That was the last I saw of her. And we were taken to the train. Then we stayed in some place in Germany. That was a kind of camp, I don't know. Just overnight. In the morning, they divided us into groups, and our group was going to Hamburg. The others somewhere else, I could understand a bit of German because it's close to Yiddish, but I didn't speak Yiddish. So I didn't have the accent, but I could some words understand. We came to Hamburg. There were 48 of us, girls. And we were living in the middle of Hamburg. There was a house, I think 5 or 6 stories, but on the ground, above ground, you had a few steps up, there was a big room. I don't know if it was a ballroom or if it was a meeting room or something. And over there they put banks for us and to wash hands and face, And we had a woman that was in charge of us, a German woman. She had, her right arm was short, like that. She was a cripple. She was okay. We were free, but we had to wear P for Poland. And we had some restriction. We were not allowed to use public transport. We were not allowed to go to coffee houses or what. Not allowed to make friends with Germans. But we were free to walk. But by 9 o'clock, we had to be in and we were locked in. In the morning, the woman was taking us by tram to the work, to the factory. There was a factory that produced all kinds of juices, tomato sauce, all kinds of things like that. And everything was done by hand. They're not a machine like you've got today. To fill up a bottle, you have to put it there, fill it up, close it, put another one, close it, then to put the label by hand. The work wasn't hard, but it was so monotonous. And the problem was that we were short of sleeping. Every night there was an alarm. Bombers were coming over Hamburg, but I was there 10 months. Not once it was bombed, but they were bombing somewhere else. And we were forced to go to the cellar and wait until they returned. Then they let us out. And by the time it was after midnight, you didn't get much sleep. And we were falling asleep while working. By the end, we decided we were not going down. We started to hide under beds. In the beginning, she was calling police, with force they were taking it out. But then she decided, when the alarm came on, it was on our house. It was very loud. She had a suitcase prepared. She took the suitcase, locked us in, and went by herself. We were happy we slept through it. At least we got some sleep back. That went on till, I suppose it was June or July. One night, suddenly, we woke up to a noise that you can't imagine. From the pressure, there were, according to the German news, 1,800 bombers passed through Hamburg in 3 waves. You know, first 600, one wave, after an hour another wave, and just imagine hundreds of bombs exploding at the same time. From the pressure of it, the windows and the door was torn out with the flames. What we saw is just fire coming from the... you can't imagine the noise of it. When it stopped, we were thinking we can't hear anymore, nothing. But the police right away came, took us all to the bunker, down to the cellar, and it went 3 times. They went through. Wherever they passed, nothing was left, not one house. That all depends what they were throwing, what they had. In our area, they were throwing fire bombs, but one that you can't put out. It had a special name. Not with water, not with sand. You can't put it out. It has to burn itself out. The road was burning, Whatever it felt, it was burning. And our house was burning too, but it started on the top. Where the factory, there were normal fire bombs. So they managed to put out 14 bombs, but half of the factory was destroyed. The one thing, the Germans were so well organized. In the morning, after the bombing, we went out into the street. Some streets were houses lying over the road, That all depends what kind of bombs they were. But not one house, when they went through, was standing. On every corner, they had tables with food. How they organized that, I don't know. But food that we haven't seen for years. All kinds, drinks and everything. We were running from one table to the other eating. And I was so happy at that time. I saw the Germans looking exactly how we used to look. Dirty, with things on her backs, with crazy eyes, you could see. Suddenly they were not the rice that they said they were. They were ordinary people, scared to death. And the bombing continued, but not to that extent. Every few hours, one went to one bomb here, one bomb there, just to keep it going. Now, I had a friend, she was Jewish too, Zosha. And she worked at the table with a woman, German woman. When straight after the bombing, they managed to take out all the bunks because it was burning on top, but not down, and put them in the factory that wasn't damaged, the site. And they moved us there. And the woman that my friend was working with suggested to her to leave Hamburg. She is going 45 kilometers away she's living. And we can go with her and we will find work there. So she had a wagon, its horse, and all her belongings on it, and a place for my girlfriend. For me, she gave me a bicycle. I hardly could ride bicycle, but I managed somehow. And thousands and thousands of people were walking, leaving Hamburg, you know. We managed to arrive in that township. That was a village. And she arranged for us to work on a farm nearby. They needed. So we moved there and we started working there in field. And that was autumn 43, because we were taking out sugar beets, you know, and that is in autumn time. Sometimes when we went in the morning, it was already frost. We had a room there. I was there with my friend, and we worked in the fields. We were there maybe 2 months, no more. Then one day we came from work, and the farmer's wife said to me, "The policeman was here looking for you." I said, "For me?" There was one policeman in the area, and all the Poles and they were working there, they were so scared of him. I was thinking, I kept to myself. I didn't mix. And my girlfriend, she was a bit, she liked to flirt, you know, with the boys, even with the son of the German, when he came from the army. She used to talk to him and laugh with him. And I told her, "Don't worry," she said. I was thinking maybe they mean her, not me. What did I do? So when we had plenty to eat there, but we didn't sit together with the Germans. Now they had a table here, and we had a small table in the second room. We started eating. The policeman came. He was a big man. He came in. "Which one is he? Lydia Volnik?" I said, "I am." "Come with me." I said, "Why?" "You will see." So I went upstairs where we slept and started. I had a little suitcase to put some things in, and he asked me, "What's your name?" So I said, "Lydia Volnik." "That's not true." And he took out a piece of paper from his pocket, opened it up. He said, "Your name is Saba Fishman." I didn't even blink. I looked him straight in the eyes. I said, "That's not true." "Doesn't matter." He said, "Take your things and come with me." And my girlfriend, she started crying. And, "Don't tell on me, don't." I said, to "You idiot, I don't cry and you crying? You will give me up. You know? And she was bringing my things. I said, "Stop it. If I will come back, I will have it. If I won't come back, I won't need it." And he took me in a taxi to another town, little township. We came there, we came to a police station, and I remember there were a few policemen sitting at a table, drinking, eating, and we came in, and they asked him, "What are you doing here?" He said, "They think that she is Jewish, you know." So they asked me, "Are you Jewish?" I said, "No." "Oh, so don't worry. If you are not Jewish, it will come out." I was there for a couple of days in a cell, and I was during the day, they gave me work, preparing food in the kitchen. Then one day he came back, he said, "Tomorrow we are going to Neumünster. So put your better clothes on," because I was in the boots from the field. So I said, "But I haven't got with me underclothes, better clothes. Tell me what you need and I will pick it up from the farm." So I told him, shoes and a dress and a coat. He went and he bought it for me. He took me, we went by train, I think it was Neumünster, and we came to a building that was the Gestapo headquarters. But it wasn't so that you could see. It was just a normal building. We went in and we went to some rooms. Then he told me to wait here. He went inside one room and was talking to the men that sit there. He said, and told him, he said, "I don't believe that she is Jewish. Maybe her friend, but not her." So then they brought me in. The men that were sitting there started to interrogate me. And again, I was saying, "No, don't I know my own name?" I became angry. "How can you tell me that my name is that if it's not?" So he asked me, "How about your friend? Is she Jewish?" I said, "Look, I am living with her for 10 months, over 10 months now. Wouldn't I know if she was Jewish?" So he let it go. By the end, I asked him, I heard that the factory is open again. So I asked him, I knew that here I can't stay because they went to so much trouble to check me. They will, And he also, when he was interrogating me, he took out a postcard that I sent to Nastai family, the one that I worked for, Just before Easter, 43, I didn't get anything from my parents. I didn't know what's happened. So I sent 3 postcards to Polish friends, wishing them a happy Easter. That's all. And I signed Sabcia. I knew if they know anything, they will let me know something. And one was to the family where I worked. She wanted me to stay there. And he showed me the postcard. "Did you write that?" I looked at it and said, "No." And I was so convinced that he even didn't tell me to write something, to see if my handwriting. And I remember I had a little ring, gold ring that my sister gave me for my 12th birthday. And with a little heart and SF. So I turned the ring around, closed my hands that you couldn't see. And when I was there, I asked the Gestapo man, I said, if it's okay if we will go back to Hamburg, because the factory is already working. So he said, okay. He gave me permission, for us two to travel to Hamburg. So when I went out, I managed to get it off and throw it in the, the hole somewhere. I came back to the farm. My friend was out of it. They let you go. I said, pack your things, we are going to Hamburg. We came to Hamburg. We came to the factory there. And the boss from the factory, he called me into his office. And he asked me, are you Jewish? I said, no. So he touched my hair, said, no, a Jew can't have hair like that. I knew that I couldn't stay there any longer, because in a week or 2 months, they would come back for me. They went to all the trouble to find me in Germany. So I decided to escape. Now, we had a woman among us that was a bit older. Maybe she was 30 or in her 30s. She used to be a teacher of languages. And she was going to work in Germany too. And she was Jewish. And the boss of the factory, only with her, he was arranging everything. She had a say. And they were, among us, there were 7 Jewish girls. Not only me, but 5 others. 3 that you could see they were Jewish, And the Poles, they took advantage of it, They were like slaves. You won't do it? I will tell on you. They had it over their heads. And she, somehow, they had respect for Pani Maria, for the woman. And she kept them in hand. So she bought me a ticket. One of the girls had a sister-in-law that was working in somewhere. I had the address new. And so I was thinking I will go there. Maybe she will help me to find work, So she bought me a ticket to Gotha. So Sunday morning, very early, everyone was still asleep, I left. And they didn't miss me for a whole day because it was Sunday. I went to the train station and we traveled all very long, because in the middle of the night we arrived over there. To everyone I showed the address, no one knew where it is. Here, there, no one knew. I saw a policeman, he's traffic, So I said, I will ask him. He might help me. So I went to him and I asked if he knows the address. He didn't know, but said, but why aren't you wearing the P? You know that you can be punished for it. And he gave me a needle and a thread to sew on the P. Because I had a P, but I had it in the pocket. And he took me to the Gestapo headquarters. But this time, it was a real Gestapo headquarters. All the banners, all everything, you know, you could see. Everybody in uniform. Over there it looked normal. And I was interrogated. I remember the man, he had one, instead of glasses, only on one eye. And he had green, you know, like dead eyes. And he was looking at me and interrogating me. I told him that I came now, not long ago, from Poland in a group, German officer, brought me from Poland to work for his family. I don't remember the name, that was only 2 weeks ago. I can maybe find my way from the train station there, I told him. But and I worked, she had 3 children. So he was interrogating me, and he told me, I told him I'm from Lublin. He said, I know Lublin very well. I used to work, and he gave me the name of a concentration camp near Lublin. I don't remember if it was Travniki or something, but it was a bad camp. You know, if somebody would talk of it, you know. He was working there. And he was interrogating me, looking through my things. I had a few photos there. He looked, I had a photo of the girls from Hamburg. You know, the prisoners of war that were coming, taking us out on Sunday or something. They had photo apparatus. They took us, we had a photo of the whole group. He looked at the group and he pointed to one that wasn't Jewish. He said, that's a Jewish name, that's a Jewish face. And he looked at me and said, you are Jewish, aren't you? And the officer took you because you slept with him. I was trying anyway to convince him that it's not true. And then in the evening, I went to the cell. The whole yom I was standing facing the wall, and he was sitting next to me. And during the first day, another man came in, looked exactly like him. As maybe they were twins. You know, he talked with him. And at night time, he came back with another one. And the other man told me, put your feet apart and take off your pants. He put his finger into me and realized that I was a virgin. So the one that was interrogating me next day said, so you pay the money to bring you in. At least he believed something. And I was denying it all the time. Now, how long I was there, I really can't tell. The time stopped for me there. You know, I was standing there like Mommy, like I didn't think, I was out of my body. And maybe that was the second day. I was thinking, what do I fight so hard for my life? Why? What am I better than my parents, my sister? Why? And at the spur of the moment, I decided to end it. So I turned around to him. I said, I will tell you the truth. I am Jewish and you can shoot me. And I really wanted him to shoot me. You know, I couldn't kill myself. I didn't know how. But I wanted him to kill me. And he was surprised. He said, why didn't you say straight away? You wouldn't have to stand here. I said, doesn't matter. It's egal. So he said to me, yes, you Jews wouldn't have so hard if the American wouldn't announce war on us. So I looked at him. I was daring him, you know. And I said, yes, you wanted the American to wait until you finish the whole Europe and then to attack them. And he stood up, put up his arm, you know, the hatred in his eyes. You verfluchte Judenaugen. And I was sure he's going to. But in a moment, he somehow took control of himself, put the hand down, and sat down. I was taken to another room, and first time given something to eat. A woman brought, I still remember, 3 potatoes with the peels on, in a mustard sauce. I haven't eaten, I don't remember for how long. But my throat was dry. I needed a drink. I took a piece of potato and tried to eat it, you know, took it to and I started to choke. So I spit it out and left it on the table. I couldn't swallow it. After a while, he came out and he said, you won't get any food if you won't finish that. I didn't care at that time. Not long after, they took me to the prison. And I was taken to a woman that was in charge there. And she gave me, I don't remember if I had a shower or that I don't remember. She brought me clothing for the prisoners. And she asked me, why are you here? So I told her, because I'm Jewish. So she looked around if anyone heard and said to me quietly, don't tell anyone, because you will have a hard time here. German woman. So I was in jail for a month. I was working every morning. They took me in the jail. They had a place. There were long tables and people were sitting, women, and I was putting a few parts together. They showed me how, you know? And then when I put that one, I gave it to the other, and he put something else on it, and that why I don't know what it was. But something in metal. They put few pieces together. I had a cell with a woman that was older, Polish woman. She told me, I think she was pinching things or something, and she was sending somewhere. I was there for a month. All day we worked. Once a day, they took us out for exercise. In the yard, all concrete, nothing, not a green, nothing. We were walking one after another in single, and were not allowed to communicate, to talk. The same at work, we were not allowed to talk with one another. And we were walking around and around for 20 minutes. That was our exercise. We came back. In the morning, before we left, we used to get a piece of bread and some jam and something that's supposed to be coffee, but it was... And that should last us till the evening. And in the evening we had some soup with a few veggies in it. Look, we were hungry all the time, but we lived, we could survive. One day they came and told me that I'm going back to my hometown, Majdanek. Majdanek was at the outskirts of the town where I was born. And to this day I can't understand. I saw at the Holocaust Museum Eisenhower visiting a camp in Gotha. There was a camp there. Why didn't they throw me into that camp? Only they sent me all the back to Majdanek because I come from there. I don't know why. So the woman that was with me in the cell, she had a big... It looked like from straw, a big, you got two handles from both sides. And we went to the train station. We came to Leipzig. In Leipzig, we stayed a night in a camp. I was helping the woman carrying the box. And Leipzig has got a huge train station because it connects from everywhere. We spent the night there. We had showers, and they put some stuff in our hair against lice. And all our clothing was put into an oven to disinfect. And it smelled from the disinfection. In the morning, they took us by trucks to the station. And then from the station, they put us in rows again. I don't remember how many in a row. And I managed to get the woman, to get off her, that she had somebody else to help her. I don't know why. It was an intuition or something. I want to be free, not to be... And we walked. We were surrounded by police or soldiers, I don't know who they were, with guns and dogs. And one was just behind me. I was the first on the right. And we came to where the train was stationed. It was a normal train full of people. Only by the end, it had carriages for the prisoners. Now, we were not like the Jewish people that were like cattle. We had papers, we had names, and they were calling out name with the papers to give to the train. That train on the left was full of people, and they were looking at us, watching us. On the right, they cordoned off the people. The people were standing, but they were guards standing, keeping them away. And another train was behind them. And slowly we walked. I don't know, I wasn't thinking anything. I was completely like I didn't exist. I was walking. And then I heard, halt, stop. I stopped too. And in that moment, I realized the soldier that was behind me, he was one step in front of me. I don't know how I so quickly make the decision. I was thinking, if I am out, why should I go in? Even he will shoot me, he won't shoot in front of all those people. He can catch me, push me, hit me, but I didn't care even if he will kill me. Now to go back, all the people will see it.
So just 10 seconds for this sound to go away. Was he telling you to halt?
To all the people. The whole, there were men in the front, women in the back. There were a few, maybe 200, I don't know how many.
Okay, we can start again then.
Yeah. So I stopped, and in that moment, to go back, everyone will see me. To go to the people, they will see me. So I decided the only thing is to continue walking between the prisoners and the people. So I closed my eyes, and I knew I couldn't run, and very slowly started walking. And I don't know how, no one noticed. And the worst was my heart. It was beaming in my head, and so loud, I was sure that people could hear it. I tried not to breathe, to quieten it down. But my heart was beating. And I walked till everything became quiet. So I slowly opened my eyes, and I turned around. I saw the prisoners standing there, still standing. So the first thing what I did is I saw toilets. I went in, I locked myself in. I had under my arm a towel that they took from my possessions. They gave me a towel, a comb, and a hanky. The rest they took. I took the towel, put in the toilet, and put the water down, not to leave any clues. And I had a piece of bread they gave me for the day. I ate it. For me, it was so long. I don't think I was long there, but every minute was like an hour. I was there. I looked into a mirror. They had water. I washed my face. I looked into the mirror. I couldn't recognize myself. At that time I was 17. I looked like 70. My hair was hanging fat from the things that they put into it. It was snowing outside. And I was in a summer coat that used to be navy blue, but now was gray and crumpled from the oven. And the smell, you can smell it. And sandals, no socks. My legs were blue from cold. I looked in the mirror, I had black thing under my eyes. My lips were black. I don't know if it is from cold or I don't know. Black, like burnt. But the worst were my eyes. They were crazy eyes. I tried to smile to take away the craziness from them. But what I managed is just to move my lips, but I couldn't reach my eyes. With the water, I cleaned a bit the coat. And I said, we'll see. I waited. In meantime, people wanted to come in. You know, I don't know, children. I couldn't stay there for long because they will come to investigate. Why is it closed? So I turned around, opened the door, and I went in. And I looked, I went back to the same place. They had only one person there. When I first went into the train, I was looking, not too many people in it, you know. And I saw one, only with one man sitting next to the window in brown uniform. At that time, I didn't know what brown uniform was. I was happy he's not in black uniform, not a Gestapo man. But later I learned the brown uniform. They were, if not as bad, they were still worse. They started the Kristallnacht, SI. And when I came in there, he looked at me up and down, up and down. I turned my head, I could see the prisoners. Closed my eyes. All the time he was looking at me. When the conductor was going, that's when I went to the toilet. So I came back to the same. And again he was looking me up and down, up and down. And the prisoners were slowly disappearing. They were calling out names, and the prisoner, together with his papers, was handed over. Then they finished with the men, and they started with the woman. After a while, I heard commotion outside. The police was running along the other train. Probably they called out my name, and I wasn't there. And they assumed that I jumped to the train there. And at that time, the train started moving. And it was an express to Dresden. And the soldier was all the time, he didn't take away his eyes from me, up and down, up and down. He knew who I was, but probably he was a decent person after all, because he could call The police right away could smell who I was. So I came to Dresden, and everyone left. So I had to leave too. So I went down. Now where to go? I saw 2 trains going in different directions. I nearly went into one, then I looked at the other one. I don't know what intuition or the people looked more decent. I don't know what. I decided, no, I will go to the other train. So I jumped down and I went to the other train full of people. That was a train that was going like here to Dandenong, and full of workers. It was afternoon, probably shift work was coming along. And among the people, it was snowing outside. It was so cold. I was like a piece of ice. And I came to one station. People were coming off. Then I decided next station, doesn't matter what, I'm getting off. So next station was Großwörsdorf. I went down, small station, dilapidated. But the conductor was standing near the door, taking the tickets off the people. So I went to the toilet, locked myself in. After a while I went out, the man wasn't there anymore, so I left. I looked around me, nothing. Only snow. Probably there was a field here, but it was flat, completely flat. Not a tree, nothing, not a house inside. Snow. I started walking on the road, and then I saw a man pushing a bike. He was probably working on the trains. So I stopped him. And I heard that Berlin was bombed a couple of days ago. So I told him I come from Berlin. I came not long ago from Poland. I was working in a factory. The factory was bombed. And I'm trying to get back to Poland. And I ran out of money. He looked at me. In the back of his bike, he had a suitcase that opens like that. Not this way. He opened it up and took out a sandwich and an apple and gave it to me. He told me, continue walking here, you will come to the township of Großwörsdorf. A lot of Poles are working there. So you go, they will help you find work. So I thanked him and I started walking. First of all, I ate the sandwiches, the apples. And while I was walking, I saw a horse coming with a wagon. And the man sitting there had a pea on. So I stopped him and I started talking Polish. Oh, he was so happy he got somebody from his country. And I told him the same story. So he said to come up, sit next to him. He has to go first to a farm to deliver something. I can stay, he's in another farm with another girl there working. I can wait there. When he will deliver that, he will come back. You will see what he can help me. He took me to his farm. The girl that was working there, he gave me a dish of soup and put me next to a fire. I was like a piece of ice. It was cold, and I was in sandals. After a while, he came back. He said, you are in luck. We've got here a bakery, and they had a girl working there. She was half Deutsch, and they had a lot of problems with her. She was sleeping around with all the men, and suddenly she disappeared. And they need someone. They are very, they've got a lot of connections. They will be able to keep you. So he took me to the bakery. I came there and I saw all the bread, all the cakes and everything. I was standing there like the smell of it. I haven't seen it for years. And the owner said that unfortunately he can't help me much because his wife is in Dresden today and she is in charge of the workers. But I can talk with her sister-in-law. The big woman came in and she saw me, looking with the big eyes at all the food. So first what she did, she went and she bought me a roll, pleated roll with jam and coffee. Yeah. I still have the taste of it in my. And she said, she can't arrange anything. Her sister-in-law will be tomorrow. If I can stay for a couple of hours to help them out and come back tomorrow. So the boy that brought me there, he left me, and I helped her in the bakery. After he came back to pick me up, and I slept in the farm there. In the morning, he took me back to the bakery. And the woman, the owner, she was already there. First what she did was to bring a pair of pants, winter for skiing, from her niece, and pair of socks. She gave it to me. And she said, okay, you can stay here. Now is Wednesday, that I remember. I can keep you here till Saturday, but by Saturday you have to go to Arbeitsamt to register, because I can't keep you more than 3 days without registration. And where is I asked her the Arbeitsamt. She said in Arnsdorf. That was the station that I decided to go one stop more. So I was happy that I didn't get up there, because I was thinking Arbeitsamt is like Gestapo. So I started working. Came Saturday. She told me, you have to go and catch the train before lunch, because it's only one train, and register, and I will see what I can do so you can stay with us. So I went, and I managed to miss the train. I came back and said, I'm sorry, I missed the train. So she gave me a bicycle and said, no, you have to go. And I started, that was 7 kilometers. I started to ride, every time slower and slower. By the end I was walking and pushing the bike. Then I came to the address and I looked at the house. Normal one-story house. Didn't look dangerous. I looked in the window, I saw an elderly woman sitting there and typing. So I went in, I knocked in, and I told her the same story. And the woman, she had tears in her eyes. But by the end she said, look, because you worked for the army effort in a factory, you can't work now privately. And she found a place for me in a factory. I came back. Mrs. Freidenberg, the one from there, she was very upset that I couldn't work with, stay there. I went to see the factory, Weidnitzer, Herr Weidnitzer. That was a factory that was doing for gas masks, you know, and for rucksacks, the straps. They were doing materials too, but I was in that. Yeah. In the meantime, the owner of the factory rang up to the bakery and talked with Mrs. Freidenberg and asked her if it's okay if I can stay a couple of days with her until he will find a place for me, because he wasn't there to take me into his home. So she said, I will do better than that. You can stay here. So by the end, I stayed in the bakery. I worked in the factory. I came back. She had for me dinner ready, and I was helping in the bakery. And I was there till I was liberated.
What gave you the strength to keep going day after day?
I don't know. That's survival in you. I didn't want it to leave. I was praying every night, please God, if you really exist, because at that time I had doubts. Please let me go to sleep and not to wake up anymore. It wasn't too much to ask.
When it was happening, did you feel like it would go on forever?
Look, at that time you live from minute to minute. You don't think, you don't make plans. It's what comes, what you are living in the minute in this.
How did the Holocaust and the experience affect your belief in God?
I am not a believer anymore. I don't believe there is a God. People created God. But in my eyes, a God is like a parent, should be loving, forgiving, not punishing all the time, vindictive. And I don't believe there is a God. If there is a God, he would prefer his people to be kind towards one another, respect one another, to people who pray all day long and by the end go out and kill in the name of God, because all the wars are in the name of God. Even the Germans had on buckles, Gott mit uns, God is with us.
Out of the entire experience, which memory was the worst?
Look, everything was the worst. You can't put, the worst was that I was separated. But you are all the time under the threat. All the time. I was even afraid to fall asleep, because if I talk in my sleep. Because when I was young, a little girl, I had a sister that was 9.5 years older than me. Sometimes she asked me something, and I didn't want her to tell her. I said, it's a secret. She used to say, oh, don't tell me. When you sleep, not only that you talk in your sleep, but I can ask you anything and you will answer me. I used to say, oh, yes, yes. I didn't believe it. But on the way, when we were traveling to Germany, one night that we spent on the way, I was on the bank on top. And under me was a woman with a little girl, about 3. And they were Jewish. Sometimes she was calling the girl and she used to say, that's not my name. And the mother tried to, by any means, to shut her down. And that night, I was falling asleep. I heard the woman talking in her sleep in Yiddish. So I jumped from my bed and accidentally, I touched her. She woke up. I said, sorry, I didn't tell her. And that came back to me. So maybe I do talk in my sleep. So when we were in Hamburg, that was the worst, because I was together with the Poles all around. I try not to fall asleep. We had a bank and a bag with straw and a blanket. That's all. No pillows, not sheets, nothing. And so I, instead of lying on the sack of straw, I was lying on the wood, not to be comfortable. I was torturing myself, not to fall asleep too badly, too deeply.
What's a lesson you'd like to pass on to future generations?
A lesson, live and let live. Because we all belong to one big human race. There are no races. And even if we don't love one another, because you can't love every person, but we should try to live in peace and respect the other one for what he is. Everybody has got a right to live the way he wants to live, dress the way he wants to dress, as long as he doesn't force me to be like him.
How did the experience affect your mental health in the long term?
I don't know. I don't know how I would have come. First of all, for 20 years, I had nightmares. Now, every night I was running, hiding, trying to get away. And regardless what I did, I was always caught by the end. I used to wake up in the middle of the night with my heart pounding and wet from perspiration, as if I took physically part in the running. I don't know how. And it took me a long time to fall asleep again. And when I fell asleep, it continued where I left off. I was afraid to mention it to anyone, because they will say I am crazy. They will lock me up. So I had to find a way to live with it. Having the nightmares, and then to remembering it during the day, I would have got crazy. So I just blocked it out. I closed the door on it. For 42 years, I never talked about the war. Not even with my husband. He knew that I was working in Germany as a Polish Christian girl, but that's all. I couldn't talk. There were two reasons. First, I couldn't, because every time that I opened my mouth, something inside me used to clamp down, I became hysterical. And secondly, I didn't want that my children to hide. So for 42 years, I never, after I wrote my life story, that I became free. And I can talk about it without breaking down.
Are there any common misconceptions people have about the Holocaust or things they misunderstand?
Look, they don't want to understand. Why? Why did you tell me? Why? Who was Jesus? He was a Jew and an Orthodox Jew. Who were the 12 apostles? They were all Jews. The first Christians were all Jews. They didn't accept anyone else, only Jews. To this day, if you want to change your religion by the Orthodox Jews, they will make it so hard for you. They don't, and Jews were preaching in the same place with the Christian for 100 years after Jesus. One group was preaching straight to the God, the other one to Jesus. And only when the first church was established, for the church to be in the right, they had to prove the Jews are in the wrong. So they started accusing Jews that they killed Jesus. Jews didn't kill him, didn't crucify him. The Romans did. And nobody hates the Italians for it. Jews are the children of the devil. God turned away from them. Before they were the people, the chosen people. And then the God turned away from them. How do they know the God turned away from them? And that was preached for 2,000 years in churches. And if you tell a lie many times, it became truth. And people believe in it. But you got people intelligent, highly educated. How can they not see the truth?
What was the breaking point for you when you confessed to the Gestapo?
I was thinking, I was standing there and my body was standing and I was flying, I felt like I was flying and I saw my parents and I was thinking, what am I better than they? Why do I have to fight for the life to go on? Why? For me, I believed, I will tell you two things. When I was a little girl, I was maybe 5 at that time. By the time I was 6, we moved from that place. And I had a girlfriend that lived down in the, he was a shoemaker, very poor people. And we used to play in the yard. And in summertime, a woman for me, she was old woman, yeah? With a shawl. She was, when the sun was shining, she was bringing a stool outside and sitting, and sewing. She couldn't see to put the thread into it. So she asked us to put the thread through. But she was telling us story. She was a wonderful storyteller. And we were listening, with open eyes, stories. Sometimes when it was raining, she couldn't come out. So we used to sneak down to her room. She had a room that was longish. Her bed was here, and next to bed a small table with a chair. And on the wall, on the right, she had something covered with a blanket. That was probably where she kept her. And on top, it was a small window that you see shoes coming through. Yeah? Because that was down in the cellar. And when we used to come, she used to switch on a light. She had with kerosene. And one day she died. We were in the yard when they brought her out in a box. It was just a wooden box, nothing. She was poor. Yeah? And they put the box on a wheelbarrow with 3 wheels. 2 here and 2 men were pushing everyone from one side. You had 2 handles. Were pushing the wheelbarrow. And there were only 2 men, and there were a few women with the same. And I never saw a dead person. And I said to my girlfriend, come on, we will go escort them a little bit. And we started walking after them. And the woman saw us, it was Jewish girls, so they pushed us to the front. They said, go in the front. And I said to the girl, we will go to the end of the street, then come back. We came to the end of the street and I felt ashamed. By the end, we didn't know where we were. And we walked and walked because the cemetery is not in the city. It was. By the end, we came to a place. It was a cemetery, I don't know. And it was a hall prepared. They put the box, the wooden box, on the ground, and they opened the lid. And the woman, everyone came, and I don't know, they were praying and after they finished, they pushed us. Said, now it's your turn. I was scared. I never saw a dead woman. So I closed my eyes and was leaning over the box. And then slowly I opened my eyes and I couldn't believe what I saw. She looked beautiful. She wasn't old. She had red cheeks and red lips, and she looked like she's sleeping and smiling. So I was thinking, she must be in heaven among the angels. So for me, the death wasn't anything to be afraid of. It was end of suffering. I never saw her smiling. She was always full of she was hurting. And the other thing that I had, that was in 1942, My mother was sick. She was a sickly woman. She always had problems, you know. But somehow during the war she kept going. But at that time she was really sick. And I was standing at her where her legs were. And my father sat next to her on a chair and tried to feed an egg in a soft-boiled egg in a container. And she was turning her head. She didn't want it. And by the end, somehow he managed to put the spoon into her. And at that moment she fainted and clapped her mouth shut. And he couldn't take out the spoon. So he started to panic, you know, trying to, he took water. And after a while, her eyes started to flicker. And she opened her eyes, looked around. When she realized where she is, all the pain came back to her face. And she put her finger to my father and said, "Why? Why did you have to bring me back? I was so happy already." So I wasn't afraid to die. What I was afraid is not being able to die.
How do you feel about the resurgence of neo-Nazis today?
Look, you will always find people that they look for something to occupy their mind, something that other people don't look at it. Look, you will have people they hate. How you can come over it, I don't know. That's only by educating children. That's the only way.
Do you believe people are inherently good and become evil?
Look, in every nation, you got good people, bad people, and evil people. Doesn't matter where. In every nation, you have got a nation that you will say they're all good or all bad. It all depends who is in power and manipulates the other. Because the problem is that people are so easily manipulated. They don't think for themselves. They follow. And that's the problem. People should have an open mind and to make sure that what they are doing is the right thing to do, not because they were told to do.
Why do you think your parents decided that going into Germany was the safest place for you?
Because I would survive, I wouldn't be Jewish there. Look, people were looking any way. At that time, we believed only young people were taken to the camps to work.
How did you have the courage to lie to the Gestapo?
I don't know. I was so convincing that sometimes I managed to convince myself. I should have become an actress.
How do you want to be remembered?
How I want to be remembered, I will be remembered. I've got my sculptures that were all over the world. I wrote the book. I got the Order of Australia, 1915. I achieved something.
Do you think it's important for other people to tell their stories?
It is. so it won't repeat itself, but still repeat itself. The only way is to educate children from the. But if a child gets the story from the church to hate the Jews, he hates them. You see, I was working in a foundry. It were men from New Zealand or Tasmania? New Zealand. A very nice man. He had a wife and 2 small children. And once he asked me, he said, Sarah, one thing I can't understand. He became friendly with an Israeli man that was, half of his body was in scars. He was in a tank when it caught fire in one of the bombs. And he worked near in a factory, and he used to come to the foundry lunchtime. They used to eat lunch together. So he said to me, one thing that I can't understand. I always hated a Jew. I never saw a Jew, but I always hated them. Now his friend is Jewish. He's a nice man. You are Jewish. You are nice. How come? Where did he get it from? The church, the home, the surroundings.